morning everyone, Titus here for the final part of our Flashbang mini-series, and in this video we'll be importing our model into Unreal Engine for the first time to build it out into a game-ready asset. Let's not waste any time and jump right into it. Alright, so the first thing we're going to need to do is we're actually going to need to import our model and the materials we exported from Marmoset. So we got a folder here that I can bring over. If you remember, we actually had a bunch of textures. The ones we're only going to be doing are the three that we exported that were part of the like after the bake process. And if you were following along, we named these Flashbang _Unreal, or UE. So it'd be these three, and then our actual model that we exported from Marmoset. And the easy way to do that is you can actually just drag out the model into UE, and then I just leave the defaults, and then just hit import all, but I'll go ahead and scroll down so you can see everything. And you can pause the video in case you want to match it like mine. And then you'll notice that it creates the parts of the model. If you have a bunch of other things like materials or lights or other things, it's probably because when you're doing Marmoset, you might not have unchecked the extra boxes there, but that's okay. You can probably just leave them or delete them and just keep these main components are pretty much everything you need. And then the last bit, we'll select the three textures, drag those in, and those should import just like that. To begin building out the model, we're going to just right click and we're going to create a blueprint class. We're going to do type actor, and then we'll just simply call it BP_Flashbang, and then we can double click to actually open this up. Now, the easy way to do this is you can just simply press Control Spacebar, and then go to the folder where your model's actually at, and you can actually select one of the items and then do Shift Select and get the entire selection highlighted. And then when you go to the Add Components section, when you do Static Mesh, you'll notice it'll say multiple assets. If you select that, it'll actually build out the entire model for you automatically, and you'll find that you don't even need to really place the components or move them around because it has the transform locations from Blender when we exported the model into Marmoset, so it'll kind of do all that for you. Now you'll notice it's the low poly version, so that looks a little rough. But once we add the texture, it'll take that information and kind of smooth it out a bit. So now the other part of it too is when we were doing the modeling, I made a note saying you could, from Blender, before you did the export, you could join all the pieces together into one section. You can certainly go that route. I prefer to keep them separate because it gives the programmer options on how they want to handle the actual model. So like in this example that I quickly threw together, like if it was one piece, when I destroy the actor, I couldn't do, like a physics rotation like that. Versus if it's separate, they can do different things with it. So it gives you basically more flexibility or scalability on what you want to actually do with the model. So either way is fine. But that's basically why I did it. Alright, so now we got the model built out, but it looks a little bland, so we're going to actually have to create the material. And we're going to be using these three textures for that. So we're just going to right click and create material. And then we'll call it M_Flashbang. And then we can open that up. Now, easiest way to do this is you just press Control and then Spacebar to open up your content panel. And then you can just Shift Select these three, drag them into your graph editor. And then I like to space it out with the albedo or color at the top, the mixed map in the middle, and the normal in the middle. And if you remember, when we were in Marmoset, when we were doing the export, I was telling you to make a note on the channels that the maps were using. Now for the albedo and the normal, those didn't really matter because there's only one channel, so we were just using the RGB for that. But for the mix map has the ambient occlusion, the roughness, and the metallic, and we put those in separate channels, so the red, green, blue. So it's important that we made a note on which was which, and that was from Marmoset, but I got a little screenshot, so if you forgot to take it or note it down, don't worry. If you follow along, it'll be the same as mine. So you get this material set up. I'm going to set it up as a square here. The albedo was RGB, and that's going to go into color because albedo is color. And you can kind of begin to see it there. And then the normal was RGB as well, and you just plug that into normal, that's single channel. And the mix map, the red channel was the ambient occlusion, plug that in there. And then the green map was the roughness, so we plug that in there. And then I could add an extra little connection so we can see it a little easier. Maybe like that. And then the blue channel was the metallic. Plug that in there. And then we can just add some extra nodes. So it's maybe a little bit easier to tell this part. So if you want to pause the video here, just get a quick glance. This is how your materials should be set up. And we can just simply save that. And then we're done with the material. So we can go back to our flashbang. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a quick way to do this. So we have to go through each of these separate parts. So, that's an advantage of if you joined it in Blender, you don't have to do this once. If you do it with multiple parts, it could be a little tedious. I'm going to press Control Space. I'm going to highlight my M_flashbang material that we just made. And then under the material slot, you can just hit this little arrow. It'll auto-load it in. And now the pin should have the material, and you can see it's kind of shiny. And then we'll basically just repeat that process for every single object. And now you'll notice it no longer has those sharp angular points. It's because it's using, our texture maps from Marmoset, and it smoothed out the model pretty well. Now you'll notice the quality difference between Unreal Engine and Marmoset is probably going to be vast. Like your model will probably look a lot better in Marmoset, and that's true with most game engines. They're not going to be, the renderers they use are, different. So this is kind of like require a little bit of experimentation, mess with your model in Marmoset, export it, see how it looks in Engine. If you don't like it, go back to Marmoset, tweak it around, play with the values, and then you can probably get something that you like. But I'm actually okay with this. So we'll go ahead and compile and save. And what we can now do is we can drag out our model right here. And remember, we didn't set the scaling in Blender, so you can see it's quite large. Easy way to get a good view of it. I'm going to select the parent self object. I'm going to go add, and there's a movement component, rotating movement. You can add that. And then under the rotation rate, under the Z scale, I'm going to set that to 45. Compile, save, and then we can go take a look at our model. That's pretty big for a flashbang, so we might need to scale that down a bit, but gives you a look at how it actually looks in-game. And if you need to scale it, there's a few ways you can scale it. You can do it, from the actual parent object here, which is probably the easiest way. I'm actually just going to do it in the screen view, just so you guys can see it. So I got it selected already. Go to my details panel. I'm going to hit the lock to make sure it's locked on the scale, and I'm going to try maybe a 0.1, and that's probably a more appropriate size. So we play, you can see it's the same as the other one. There's your model. Alright, now some other fun things you can do with your game asset. Like this is a flashbang grenade, but you know, in Marmoset you could change, well I guess in Blender you'd have to change some of the text. You can create like a few iterations, maybe make a chaff grenade, smoke grenade, stun grenade, you know, sky's the limit. I can demo just some basic code. Go ahead and just delete, I guess edit and delete, there we go. So what we can do, let's hit play. Yeah, might as well go get a full screen view. There we go. Alright, so press G, I got some physics added so you can bounce it around and get some cool effects there. Then after a few seconds the model will disappear. I think it's like actually like 10. The other one I made is I used some post-processing effects to create like a flashbang effect. So you can throw a flashbang down and it'll actually flash you based on your rotational movement. And then it plays a little ringing in your ears. You know, it's a pretty neat effect. If you're making like a smoke grenade, do something like that. Creates that sort of look there. And that's just using the Niagara system with the smoke texture. If you were doing like a chaff effect, that's another Niagara system. You can kind of see it there. So you can get a lot of cool effects just with you know, like simple code. It didn't take too long to do. With the smoke, you can also do post-processing. You can create some movement effects where it messes with the screen, slows the character down. Maybe that's the sort of thing you're looking for. Or if you're doing the chaff grenade, you can mess with the electronics and give a weird effect where it destroys your equipment or whatnot. So, you know, a lot of cool things you can do with this stuff. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So, all right, everyone, this will conclude the Flashbang series. Then we've successfully modeled, retopologized, UV unwrapped, baked, and texture painted a game-ready asset that we brought in Engine, and you can see how good it looks. So, I hope you found the information informative, and that maybe you can take some of this info into your own projects or even build out your own skill sets. But as always, thanks for watching. Consider subscribing, and we'll see you on the next one.